It's Thursday, and you know what that means. It is Linux Day here on the Lunduke Hour, because every Thursday is Linux Day. And I've got Matt Hartley here on the line with me today. It's good to have him back. Last week was just me, and it was so lonely in this little booth of mine. I had my styrofoam, foam-padded, weird triangular walls to keep me company, but it's not quite like Matt at all. There's a lot of similarities between this stuff and Matt, but they're not exactly the same, and I missed having Matt here. So, before we get into this, let's talk about some hardware. I got some rather kick-ass hardware to talk about today. Specifically, Pogo Linuxes, and this thing is awesome. This is awesome. All right, going into tradition, if you watched yesterday's show, you saw some truly intense hardware. I mean, big rigs. I thought, you know what, I'm going to keep that fun ball rolling because this is crazy. I love this. This is a 7U unit. So if you've got a rack, this is 7 U's. This is a huge, huge rig. This is called the Iris 780 from Pogo Linux. It has up to 15 PCIe 3.0 slots. 15 of them. I configured it with 8 Intel Xeon E7 processors, and I kid you not, the base configuration, the low-end configuration for this mammoth rig is 1 terabyte of DDR4 RAM. That's like the bottom. That's as low as it goes, man. It goes up to 12 friggin' terabytes, and I configured it with a measly little 1 terabyte SATA drive. It has 12 hot swappable bays because I was at a point where I'm like, wow, the base config is 1 terabyte of RAM. I kind of want there to be an exactly the same amount of RAM as is hard drive space. That to me just sounded hilarious. So that's how I configured it. But it does have 12 hot swappable bays. You can put whatever you want in it. It's got 5 1600 watt power supplies in it because 4 would not be enough. That configuration runs $78,452. It is such a massive beast of a machine. I'm not sure if I've seen any machine that matches the beastliness of this machine. I mean, this puts some significant mainframes that I've managed to toy around with to shame. That is just glorious. I don't know how many of you out there actually need a 7U, 18 PCIe, 8X Xeon, 1 terabyte of RAM that can expand up to 12 terabytes of RAM sort of machine. But if there are any of you out there, there you go. There's the machine. And of course, because it's Pogo Linux, you can put all sorts of different Linux options on it. I configured mine with OpenSUSE because that's just how I roll. Because I believe that it would then be the most powerful machine running stock OpenSUSE. And then over at System 76, I thought, you know what, let's do another machine that's pretty beefy. Not quite as insane as a 7U unit, but System 76 has this really killer workstation, this tower that they call the Silverback workstation. It's got I've configured this one with 2 Intel Xeon 1.7 gigahertz processors, which is choice. 32 gigs of RAM. Each one gets, each CPU gets 16 gigabits of RAM. It's liquid cooled. I put in dual GTX 1080s with 8 gigs each, because, well, you know, why would you have just one when you can have 2 of them? And it has higher and lower graphic card options, of course, and you could just put one in there if you're a pansy and you don't want to have dual GTX 1080s. But you know, once you've got one in there, stick in a second. And then I put in a 1 terabyte SSD, and it can go up to 64 terabytes of storage with their configurations that they offer directly. The configuration I put together, though, cost $4,455, which is just possibly the most intense workstation I can contemplate. It is just beautiful. Oh my goodness. Oh my ever loving goodness. So that's from system76.com. And definitely, if you do buy machines, and you do not need to go and buy a giant 7U unit from these guys. They do have other hardware as well, and I'll talk about some of the more you know, normal stuff more tomorrow and next week and whatnot. But tell them Lunduke sent you, because that way they know that Lunduke sent you, and otherwise they wouldn't know that Lunduke sent you, and that would be just terribly sad for everybody. Matt the Matt Man Hartley, how you doing, man? It's great to have you back, dude.
Good. I'm doing good. I have coffee. I'm doing better.
You're doing better. You're doing so fantastic.
I'm doing amazing.
It doesn't get any better than Matt with coffee.
No. Absolutely.
All right, my friend. We have so many topics to talk about this week. It's unreal. I mean, so you missed out last week
Yeah.
on the Lunduke Hour. You know, we had to talk about the Ubuntu stuff because it just happened. We'll have a little bit of follow up on that. Should we get that out of the way before we take some questions?
Let's get it out of the way. Let's just push it over and have at it.
All right. So here's what I did. I've been trying to get some sort of a statement out of Canonical on how they're going to handle Ubuntu phone and tablet end of lifing. You know, how are they going to do that? Are they going to just cut them off right now? How long will the servers be running? Will updates be available? Will they do security updates? There's just so many questions there, and it's just so that people who are using the platform know what to do, right? So I asked and I asked and I poked and I poked and I poked. I sent emails to their press department and to Mark Shuttleworth. I poked them on every social media network I could. I was just like poke. They got back to me. They got back to me yesterday, and I'm just gonna go ahead and read it.
Yeah, let's get it.
Hi, Brian. Sorry for the delay in coming back to you on this. Just to clarify the answers to your questions. Here we go. And this is quoting me here, and I'll get into what it means in a minute. Firstly, Ubuntu phones and tablets will continue to function. Current over-the-air updates are limited to critical fixes and security patches only. All right, that was kind of expected. This will continue until June of 2017, so 2 months. So 2 months, just to be clear, everybody, that it only continues until June of this year, 2 months from now.
So 2 months of security updates.
2 months of security updates. After which we will no longer deliver any further updates. Users will be able to continue to download apps, and developers can continue to push updates and bug features. I don't know what a bug feature is, but it says here they can push bug features to existing apps until the end of 2017. However, it will no longer be possible to purchase apps from the Ubuntu Phone App Store from June 2017, so 2 months from now. Developers of paid apps already in the store will have the choice between making their apps available for free or withdrawing them from the store. So, in a nutshell, so as of this, so 2 months from now, May, June, so possibly less than 2 months from now, but thereabouts.
Basically.
No more security updates. End of story. Paid applications will either need to go free or be pulled from the App Store. You will not be able to buy new applications from the App Store. And then at the end of this year, so like nine-ish months from now, right? Is that about right? 8 months?
Sounds about right.
Eight months. 8 months. So something like that. Then those servers are going away completely. No more updates, no ability to download updates for apps, no more ability for developers to issue updates for apps. Literally, so if you are using an Ubuntu phone right now, and there's not that many of you, I know.
All 10 of them.
Well, you know, most people I know that have an Ubuntu phone or a tablet don't use it. Like you know,
I mean, what are you going to do? Really?
I know my buddies like John O'Bacon and Stuart Langridge and all them, they all have Ubuntu phones, but they don't use Ubuntu phones because the phones were never all that usable. And I have a 10-inch Ubuntu tablet here, but I never use it because it's not actually all that usable. I want to use it. It has so much promise and potential, but right now it's kaputs. So there you go. So, but if you are using it, you've got essentially 2 months to figure out what your contingency plan is here. Now, one thing to remember here, and I don't know how much you've been following this, Matt, but the people behind those UB ports, the Ubuntu, basically like the community run version of the App Store, they're talking about kind of continuing development and continuing support of it.
That would be fine as long as they get on it now. See, what needs to not happen is for it to then completely drop off. Then they finally get all the IP licensing, trademarky stuff figured out to where then the community can take it over. That needs to be seamless. If they can do that,
well, it's a difficult thing. Like
but I don't see that happening.
Did you have any of the old Nokia phones or the Linux Nokia
yes.
phones, like
Yeah,
the
N900s?
N900s?
That was one of my favorite ones. Yeah,
So,
Symbian and whatnot. Yeah.
well, how about the Linux powered ones? Like there was the
No.
N900 and the N9 and whatnot, and those were pretty much abandoned by Nokia almost as quickly as Canonical abandoned their phones.
Yeah.
And the community did a great job of stepping in, and a ton of people put a huge amount of work into like the Mamo project. In fact, if you go to mamo.org, I think it's still up and running. And some people still keep community repositories going with some patches and updates and whatnot. But it's so hard to do. And as time goes on, there's not like there's new devices coming out shipping with this system. So whatever tiny, itty bitty, minuscule market share it had is going to be dwindling at this point rapidly. Sure. And so I kind of feel it's doomed at this point. It's just doomed. And that's just a terrible bummer. I understand why Canonical's ramping it down so quickly. I mean, they're clearly trying to trim all the fat and get profitable, you know? But it's still kind of a bummer. It's a bummer that they're trimming it out so fast. I mean, literally 2 months from the time they announced they're killing it, they're basically yanking the plug on being able to do paid applications and everything else. They're just yanking it entirely. And that's a big move fast.
Well, it's a big move fast, but I think on the other side of it too, you got to remember. Let's look what happened with Windows XP, which is still being used by people apparently. They didn't rip the Band-Aid off fast enough, and people they want to cling on to it. So I think that's probably what they're trying to avoid, and I completely understand and support that. A lot of people got to remember they're a company, they have employees, they have various financial expectations they got to meet. And you got to do what you got to do, you know. And guess what? You bought yourself a hobbyist phone, and it's no more a thing. And maybe the community will step up. That's great. But if they don't, sorry, you know, it happens.
Yeah. It's just rough. It's amazing.
I have so hard time with it.
Man, it just seems like every time a Linux powered handset comes along, it's just immediately doomed. It doesn't matter how kick-ass it is. Like the Mamo platform with Hilden, which was like GNOME for mobile sort of at the time. Right. And that was running on like the old Nokia internet tablets, the N810s and whatnot, and then the N900 and then the N9 and they had Moblin and then the Ubuntu Touch, and it's almost like by the time they first have shipping hardware, they're already doomed. It's like
yes. But you understand why. As a marketing guy, I know you understand why. It's like I have this really amazing product, and people are just going to come to it. That's not how the mobile industry works. You got to have a carrier lined up. You darn well better have something that does really, really wide scale, uniquely different that Joe Average cares about.
I know.
Or if you're going to go for hobbyist market, that's still fine. But I want it to be on a brand name phone, not something I can't pronounce, and I want it to be with a carrier I use. You can at least do that,
or at least a phone that you can buy, like at least one that you can get. For me, like the Ubuntu phones were difficult because for a big chunk of its lifespan where it was actually available for sale, it was mostly available for sale in like other countries than the one I lived in. And not to toot my horn as America is awesome, but if you're in a position where you can't sell a cell phone in America, that's a real problem.
Well, I would say that I talked to a few of my friends overseas, and one thing they suggested about this particular thing is that Americans tend to be a little more brand centric, where people offshore might be a little more in tune to what its features, functionality, how they identify with the product itself.
And more
For example,
willing,
my Samsung, I know that I can get myself a phone. It's going to blow up in my face. That's important to me, but I don't care because I know the brand, so it's okay. See, if I was in the UK, I wouldn't buy this piece of crap because it wouldn't,
because it might blow up in your face. Yeah.
Exactly, right? But here in America, hey, fire's awesome. Woo,
Oh yeah, I'm really big on fire. Plus, sometimes my face gets really cold, and so I'd really want that to just heat the hell up and just keep my face toasty. Anyway, I need to do more digging into this to figure out what it all means. But I wanted to read that to everyone because I just got that. I haven't written an article around it or anything yet. I probably should, but it's interesting how rapidly they're ramping down. I mean, it's ramping down fast. And the fascinating thing is it today the Ubuntu release day that we're recording this on? Did it come out today or last
Isn't
night?
Isn't it sad that we used to know this stuff like that, and now it's like,
well, you know, it's sad. Really, so Ubuntu 17.04 shipped either last night or this morning, and I didn't download it and test it. Normally, I would, at least to test it for a review or something, but I don't even see the purpose in doing that because half of the interface stack is already end of life, and they've declared it completely dead, and then they have a new release. I mean, it's kind of like if Microsoft is like, it comes out and announces, by the way, everybody, we're killing off all of Windows Explorer, our entire UI, the web browser, and the entire server that displays things like a week before they release the next version of Windows. And then they come out with the next version of Windows, and what do we do with that? Is it like we can install it and we can say how good it is or how bad it is, but it doesn't really matter because it's dead anyway. Like it doesn't even matter. I think it's more reflective of the fact that they're now going to identify more with rolling release distributions, to where you don't really read a lot of articles being like, "Oh my gosh, there was an Arch update, it was amazing." You know, no one cares. You kind of get used to it, and I think they're going to start falling into that pattern. And I think Mint's going to continue to eat their lunch. Honestly, I hate saying that. I don't use Mint. I'm an Ubuntu Mate guy personally. But I know people that are really, really into Mint, and when I do an article on Mint, or I do anything with the word Mint in it, it ranks. You know instantly. What? I've actually got questions here for relating to Mint and all sorts of stuff. Let's dive on into it. So, I asked people over on Twitter and Mastodon for the first time this week what they'd like to talk about. So I'm over on the Mastodon social network now, which is absolutely fascinating. I wrote an article over on Network World about it. If any of you want to check it out. Excuse me. It is really fascinating. It's decentralized. It's federated. It's completely free software. It's based on status. It's GNU social basically. So it's it has a very nice UI, but it is federated, so it is a little different, so everyone can kind of run their own servers. I'm on one server called mastodon.rocks, which is not the main one. The main one is mastodon.social, I believe, but they had to close it down. Not like close it, but close new registrations because it was getting too popular. But it's really quite nice. A lot of the Linuxy free software folks are over there. I was having a conversation with John Sullivan, the executive director from the Free Software Foundation, with Ryan Sipes, the community manager over System 76, and a bunch of my random buds, and people are seeming to be consolidating there, at least in the Linuxy nerdy space, really well, which makes sense because it's so free software. Anyway, check it out if you want. It seems to not be a pile of garbage, so I'm pretty pro on that so far. There's so many bad social networks out there. There's so many bad ones, and so I don't know about you, Matt. So like you and me, we've spent a lot of time on Google Plus. We got the Twitter. There's Facebook and everything else. I've basically stopped using Facebook. I just can't stand it anymore. Twitter, I'm still using a lot of, just because there's so many people there. It's just so big, and I like that about it. And Google Plus, I'm using less and less over time. It just doesn't seem to, I don't know, there's just something about it. It feels like it's a dead man walking to me. So I've just used it less and less over time. I disagree. You think so?
For me, it's like, well, Twitter for me it's basically a bulletin board. Carrying on a conversation on Twitter makes me want to punch kittens. It's horrible. I hate it. I don't like it. Google Plus, I can actually have a friggin' dialogue and actually be alerted to it.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, first of all, kill the direct message feature of Twitter. That'd be step one. I hate that.
But yeah, the direct messaging on Twitter doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Crap. Yeah, why not just send an email to someone? Well,
and then it's like, okay, you're gonna try and say something, but you got to make sure it's in this many characters. Oh, you lost me. I'm talky. I got things to say.
Mastodon has a character limited as well. It's 500 characters. Which
all right,
it's a little more reasonable. But actually, Mastodon has this really cool feature where let me see how you do it here. You go in here and you produce a content warning. That's what they call them, a CW, a content warning, and it's user definable. So you click this little button, you post your status with a link, a picture, text, whatever, and you're like, you know what? I think the idea is this isn't safe for work. Like maybe there's something naughty words in it. So you put a content warning in there and you say like naughty language. And so then all anyone will see is warning, naughty language, whatever text you put in there, and they have to click a button to show it. Kind of cool.
Okay.
But what I like about it is
That
you can do
I like.
anything you want. You can do content warning, potentially very boring, and then you can click a thing and bring it down. Content warning, jokes about neckbeard enclosed. And you know, you can just do whatever you want with that. And I thought that was just a genius little bit of functionality. Anyway,
now that's interesting because that's a defining difference. Instead of being a Me Too product, it's like, I mean, that's literally you're actually offering something really cool.
This Mastodon in many ways feels like its interface is a lot like TweetDeck in that it's this column based. It's column-based Twitter, so which is nice. But I like that. It has a nicer UI than Twitter. Client side, it's faster, like it loads quicker and is a little more lightweight. It shows more on screen at once. It has those little content warnings. You can post up to 500 characters, which is nice. But the federated nature of it means that, you know, there's no central spot that anyone can take out. If I set up, like, let's say, mastodon.lunduke.com, and I set that up just for like you and me, right? And just the two of us sit on it, and that's where we connect to the social network. We can still talk with everyone else. But even if like other major Mastodon servers and hubs go away, we're still going. We still have followers. People still... people within the universe, they call it the Fediverse, the federated universe, can still connect to us, and it's just like email servers at that point. It's just that all the email servers know about each other, and they connect to each other, and there's no central thing to take out. So Twitter can't come along and kill everything. Twitter can't ban Matt. Each individual server can ban a person from being on that server. And each server can have their own rules, like people on this server, you can't run bots, or you can't be a company account. Like you can't be from Microsoft. You can't be just Microsoft, you know, at Microsoft or something from here. But each server can have their own rules, and like individual servers could even theoretically blacklist other servers, right? So
it's a lot like it's like gaming servers. Yes, that's what it reminds me. It's like oh yeah, I got booted from that one Counter-Strike server. That's cool. I'm gonna go over here. No big deal.
It's really cool. I don't know if it's gonna take off or not. I mean, who knows?
It's like I was telling you earlier. If they're able to get top shelf, top tier people really excited about it and talking about it in a staggered way over a course of time, it could happen.
And you know,
pick a group.
If nothing else, it seems to have taken off in the hardcore free software-y side. Like that seems to be gaining traction really fast. A lot of the elementary OS people are already over on there. I'm over on there. There's people from various Linux vendors on there. The Free Software Foundation is all over on there. And so from that point of view, it's becoming kind of a nice little thing. Anyway, so on Mastodon. So I asked these questions over on Twitter and Mastodon. Here's what we got back. First question from Lawrence Otts. Why must an era of Linux sucks end? It was one of my favorites. Yes, I know, me too. But it's over. Too bad. I don't know what to say about that one. There's so many more things coming. Just a side note. You're going to be at Linux Fest Northwest, right, Matt?
Yeah, I believe so. I
believe so. Okay. So I'll be there. I've got 4 shows, I think, that I'll be doing up there. So it's not like I'm not doing stuff anymore. My favorite one that I'm really, really excited about right now is just there watching you. I'm really, really excited about that one. I'm going to have a lot of fun with that one. It's ridiculous. And then I'll be doing a Lunduke Hour live up there and a bunch of other stuff. So there's stuff still going on. And other people have mentioned the possibility of forking Linux Sucks. Someone else could always come along, do it in the style of Linux Sucks and see what happens.
You could actually start defining a thing to where people start forking different talks. I mean, how wild would that be?
That's not bad.
No, and you actually hand people a fork. Like that's actually part of the transition process. It's like a baton of sorts.
All right, and you know what? I'm going to ask you this question. All
right.
Chayo Cesar, I don't know if I said his name right, over on Mastodon, asks, what do you think of Ubuntu abandoning Unity and going back to GNOME in 2018? I'm going to ask that of Matt, because I haven't heard what Matt thinks on this. Everyone's heard what I think about this.
Honestly, I think it's probably a good thing. It just makes sense because, you know, pouring yourself into Unity really made sense when they were going for mobile TV, all that convergence stuff. Now that they're not going to go that route, there's really no point in putting all that money into Unity. So going GNOME is the most natural flow. It's extendable. They can make it look how they want. Cool. I still don't use that desktop, but I think that makes sense for the development of it and the company and all that. I say go, cool, awesome. Everybody's getting all real sensitive about it. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. That really isn't that big a deal.
It's really not that. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's not. I mean, it's a big
deal. It's not
deal.
the end of Ubuntu. Like everybody seems to think it's the, oh my gosh, it's, blood's in the water. No.
There's no blood in the water. I mean, it's a good opportunity to poke fun, but I mean, outside of that, I don't know that anything bad's going on. All right, here we go. Mint question. Doug Jenkins. I'm approaching my 8th year with Linux Mint. Am I hopelessly in a rut? Would you suggest a new distro for me as a moderately experienced non-programmer? What do you think, Matt?
Well, okay, so the key phrase here is he's not a programmer. He's probably not a developer. Probably not using anything that requires bleeding edge software.
But he's been using Linux for at least 8 years here. So
yeah, he's been using it for 8 years, but he's using something that's based on an LTS, Ubuntu LTS. He's based on something that's a little more long term and stable, ideally. So honestly, why change? If you're in a place where you have certain expectations of your desktop, it'd be like if I'm coming from, if I'm an OpenSUSE Leap user and I want to try Tumbleweed, that's fine, but I'm more likely to gravitate toward Leap because I know day in, day out, it's going to do its job. Right. I don't have to worry about potential rolling release surprises. So, I always take that kind of thing. Let me give you guys a glimpse. My desktop right now has all the updates disabled except for security.
Yeah.
Only one I ever do.
Yeah.
Why? Because I don't care. I just wanted to. I got work to do. I don't have time to play, Jimmy Neutron and my magical keyboard. I don't. That's not what I have time to do.
Jimmy Neutron and your magical keyboard.
Worst child movie ever. Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah. No. So like on my production rig is all Leap. But yeah even with Leap. Everything's disabled. Like there's no checking for updates. Exactly. Not only do I not install them, I don't even want my system to know that updates might exist.
Yes. Exactly. Why? You want to be secure. Obviously, security updates are critical, but the rest of it's like, what? It's not like Windows 10 where you say I don't want to update. It says, guess what we're doing? We're going to update you anyway. No, it's not like that at all. So that's part of the beauty of Linux is it does what it's told.
I'm going to take a slightly different tack on this one. I'm going to say, Doug, you're in a rut. Get out of Linux Mint land. At least for a little while. You got to take a stroll around the block every now and then.
That's what VMs are for.
I knew a guy who, as an adult, lived in his childhood home.
Wow, that would be a trip.
He grew up. He went off to college and then moved back home, and his parents left him the house, and he just stayed there.
Wow.
Same town, same restaurants, same house, same everything. And the reality is that may have been a nice house. I never went to the place, so I couldn't tell you. Maybe it was friggin' gorgeous. But at some point, you got to get out into the world and try some other stuff. You got to walk around the block and see what else there is. You got to go across the state. You got to go across the world and see what's going on. I would recommend.
Fine. So take your Linux Mint laptop, go travel the world, but don't update it. You'll be fine. Problem solved.
I say nuke it. Nuke that partition and install something that's fundamentally entirely different from Mint. I say go over to Gentoo, go over to Arch, try something crazy. Pick a desktop environment that is nothing like Cinnamon or whatever desktop you're running on top of Mint. Just go nuts. And if it sucks, hopefully you backed up your home directory and you can go right back. No harm done. And if it's awesome, or you start noticing that maybe the grass is just a little bit more awesomely green on the other side, then you can keep on your merry way. But you got to try stuff. Like how many desktop environments and distros have you tried over the last 8 years, Matt? How many?
Oh God.
This is exactly my point. This is my point.
A lot actually.
And if you hadn't done that, I would say, Matt, you got to go sow your wild oats, friend. But you've done that.
I'd probably be working in a very different environment. No, I'd probably be more gainfully employed too. No, because I think it takes away from focus. I think that at some level, I think you need. Here, I'm going to take a step back and say you need a dedicated machine. You leave the hell alone, and then you got your adventure box. Get yourself an adventure box. Go adventurous on that, but give yourself a little stability. And whatever you do, if you have a dedicated home directory, don't go switching desktop environments and expect that to be awesome, because you're going to have a bad time.
You're going to have a bad time. The idea of having an adventure box is a great one. I've got a really cheap Lenovo ThinkPad. It's nothing fancy. It's got 4 gigs of RAM in it. It was, I want to say it was like $200, right? It was not an expensive or nice laptop, but it's the graphics and wireless are all Intel, and everything just works on every distro. So it's a great way to just, you know, get yourself that and a little 8 gig USB thumb drive and go crazy on it. Install a new distro every week just to play around with it and go nuts, man.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah,
and set aside time to read documentation for the distro you select, because sometimes you get a false sense of it if you don't take the time to read
it's true.
A never-ending wiki page. So, you know.
But yeah, no, seriously, 8 years with Mint, that's way too much mintiness.
That's a little much.
That's way too much. How Ayakaduki? I don't know how to say your name, man. What's new and boring in the world of lightweight desktop environments? Okay, that's a little snarky. But do XFCE, LXDE, LXQT, etc. still have a place in a Wayland world? And if so, for how long? That's actually kind of an interesting thought. If we've got Fedora pushing Wayland forward, pretty soon we're going to see Wayland becoming more de facto across most major distros. And as that happens, are some of the older code-based lightweight desktop environments going to kind of have a harder time getting up and running?
Well, let's see. Let's check 2 boxes right off the bat. Has Wayland ever gotten the dual monitor thing working? I don't think they have. I have no. I honestly don't know. I'm going to assume no. So, let's see. I know NVIDIA is really excited about releasing proprietary drivers for it. So that, you know, because that's going to be a gaming dream. Oh, wait a minute. I don't think that's happened either yet. So no, Wayland is kind of makes sense in a workstation sense, but I think for people like me, no, I would probably use XFCE happily, because I know the environment. It's not gonna, we're not gonna have convergence. We're not gonna do anything tweaky or whatever. It's gonna be pretty predictable, and you know what you get. So no, I don't think it's going anywhere, and I think it's going to continue to do great. So
I would tend to agree. Then again, I'm probably the wrong guy to even ask this question. I live so happily in a terminal most of the time, and and my video production rig is running Xorg right now, and it's going to stay that way. I don't see any possible reason to change it anytime soon. And my main gaming rig is all XE as well. So, yeah.
Well, and here's the thing to ask yourself. Do you use a computer for its desktop environment, or do you use applications? I use a lot of Tilde. I use a lot of Firefox. And sometimes some LibreOffice, and a few other things. But for the most part, I don't think, oh boy, man, I'm going to be using this desktop environment. It's just woo, I don't care, man. I just want to use it, right? So it's maybe I'm becoming an old fuddy duddy.
Yeah, you are, man. You're totally.
I need to just go. Oh my god.
Yeah, you're getting old, dude. You're getting wicked old. Getting old and cranky. This one kind of relates in. Something Eloquent, that's the name of this person, writes, I've been using various distributions on and off for a few years since Fedora Core 4. Good days, good days. For the last couple of years, regardless of my hardware choices, I have not had any difficulties getting things set up and fully functional for day-to-day use. What's the deal with that? I thought Linux was supposed to be hard. Even difficult distros like Slackware work out of the box for me. Right. Am I just lucky, or has the driver ecosystem just got that much better lately?
Yes, it has gotten that much better lately. I can remember. I remember when Jack was first being adopted as the sound server to go to, and you could crash it by simply you'd play audio and it crashes. It was amazing. That was the old days. Nowadays, outside of some issues with Pulse Audio or whatnot, for most people, it does its job. The biggest problem we have with computer and audio, for example, is how we manage our audio stuff, and the fact that the default sound tools provided are crap. Versus providing one that actually does its job, anyway, I digress. My point being is that yes, things have improved to a point to where it does its job now and it's great. But why is that a problem? Why do we want it to be harder?
Well, no, I think it's an interesting question, right? Dovetailing off of the Wayland discussion, because the point you brought up about NVIDIA not having certain kinds of drivers for Wayland just yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
As we are making software changes to our stack, like moving to
Right.
Wayland, all of a sudden now graphics driver issues are going to be an issue again, where
That's
they
true.
kind of stopped being an issue for a lot of people over the last
Mostly.
couple
Yeah.
years, mostly. So I think there's potential for more issues
Is that
cropping
a
up because of
regression?
that.
Is
I
that a
don't know
safe
if
bet? Is that a regression of
it's a
sorts?
side gression. It's a
Side regression?
it's side grest. Yeah, something like that.
Sounds like a really bad massage, but
But
okay.
yeah, it has gotten a lot better, hasn't it? It's just so
Yeah,
much better
it does.
lately. Adam Roycraft asks, just switched full-time to Linux about 6 months ago. Welcome, man. My knowledge
Yeah,
is
good choice.
spotty. Any good reference books or tutorials out there that you recommend? Got any thoughts there,
Oh
man?
goodness. Two thoughts. First and foremost, Joe Collins. Get on his
Yes.
YouTube videos. He's
Yes,
just
good stuff.
full disclaimer, he writes for me at freedompenguin.com, but he's also a buddy of mine, and he's really, really, really got it dialed in a very approachable way of doing very common stuff. There are also other things you can check out. I do some stuff at Freedom Penguin you can check out as far as some of the newbie stuff, but a lot of it's going to be, honestly, I'm going to tell you to perhaps spend some time on YouTube and try and figure out what tasks you're looking to do and find videos that you can then watch and follow along with. That's probably the number one thing you can do.
That's the easiest.
To really, because it's not always a matter of here's how you create a directory with the, I mean, if you want to do that from the command line, that's great. Learn how to do it. Or you want to do it from a GUI, that's great. But most of the time, you're actually trying to solve a problem or accomplish a thing.
I agree.
Google that.
There are some really great YouTubers out there that are putting up good tutorial content. That's just kind of like here's how you do this. Joe Collins is great. Epoxvox. There's a couple other ones out there that they're doing a good job with that sort of stuff. And yeah, find those channels, subscribe to those, and search through them and just watch a bunch of them. You'd be amazed at what you'll learn pretty quickly.
And pay attention to the related videos. A lot of times, you'll find stuff you might not have thought of.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a particular application you're thinking, oh, I didn't even know that could do that. You go check it out.
Right.
It's cool.
Also, watch the Lunduke Hour religiously, like every day, just constantly, and you just soak it up. Yep. Hey, I was gonna say osmosis.
Yeah. And read Freedom Penguin for things.
Oh yeah, freedompenguin.com.
Yeah, do that.
Ray Shimpko asks, what do you think of Plasma Mobile now that Ubuntu Phone is essentially dead? Essentially ain't nothing. It is dead. If things took off, would you use it or look for an alternative? Actually, if Plasma Mobile, Plasma Mobile is basically the KDE Plasma user interface tweaked for mobile, sitting on top of usually a Mare stack, and Mare is basically like a Mamo, Moblin, Debian-ish. Well, is it? Wait, no. Mare Debian now, or is Mare a Red Hat based? I can't remember now. It's been so long since I've seen Mare. But anyway, so it's a nice little stack. I can't remember because they changed over from Mamo was Debian, and then Moblin became Red Hat based, I thought. And then the mobile space for Linux gets so convoluted sometimes. But if Plasma Mobile became really usable and I could put it on, a phone, a tablet, a series of tablets and whatnot, you know what? If it performed reasonably well, I'd totally run that. I'd run the hell out of that. I would love that. I'm not that big of a KDE guy, but KDE is a good system, good set of applications, even if the only things that could run are Qt or Qt applications and KDE tools, that's still a really robust and productive ecosystem. I would be super excited about that. I don't expect to see that happening anytime soon, because there was multiple efforts at producing a good KDE based tablet some years back, and it just didn't go anywhere. It didn't come to fruition, and it's sad and it's awful. But I think as of right now, we're pretty much dead in the water in terms of Linux mobile, other than Android. I mean, Tizen is out there, but Tizen's got what it's got. It's 200 some odd security exploits found in one day, or whatever the hell that news item was.
Don't run that.
So yeah, there's just not a lot going on. I don't know. What about you, man?
I'll tell you. So here's the deal. I'm going to give all the mobile tablet guys, if you guys want to develop a Linux distribution for phones, tablets, whatnot, great idea, cool idea. I think I figured out a market that would really work, but it would definitely be a little tricky. if you could pick like the top 3 brands and maybe the top 3 models of soon to be obsolete devices, the ones we already own that we don't have to go and find a vendor for or buy.
Yeah.
And you're able to make it work that and really just focus exclusively on that. Forget all this new hardware nonsense. Look at this planned obsolescence problem. If you're able to make my devices basically have more value, much like what we do on the desktop, that might be interesting. Then I would see this whole plasma desktop thing as being kind of cool.
Totally agree. If they could
I have
come
a tablet
after
right here.
Well,
God,
well, I mean, hell. So, like, if you look at the phone side of things, like there's a couple of Motorola phones that are really easy to root, not a big deal.
Right.
So, installing a new OS on those would be great. So like the Moto G series aren't too bad that way. Or focus on like a Samsung Galaxy S3, one of them where you can still technically buy them new, but only for $99 or something.
Exactly. See, you start there. Exactly what you're saying. Yeah, you start there at the top, and you start with the absolute most popular. Soon to be obsolete devices, and then you work down into the lesser stuff like this Verizon branded piece of crap.
Yeah.
Which they updated it to a new version of Android. I can barely run it. It's crap. It's a brick now.
Yeah.
So that would be amazing. Now I'm excited. Now I care.
Yes.
Do that, guys.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yeah. Forget the hardware at this point.
Stop with it.
It's.
I will pay you money to do this. I mean, like, I'll subscribe.
It's just like on the Linux desktop side of things. Linux on the desktop, no one really succeeded at shipping Linux on custom hardware for it until significantly far into Linux's maturation as an ecosystem. Then when it got significantly mature, when we got really good at installing it on all of the Gateway 2000s that were being shipped, then companies could come along like System 76 and Pogo and Dell and everyone else. And then they're like, okay, now we're preloading Linux. Now we're rocking and rolling. Now we've got market.
Is those guys later on, they said, what if we installed Linux on hardware you've actually heard of?
Yeah.
Words like Intel and AMD and NVIDIA. So I mean, actually that's because before we were doing it on like these VIA chipsets and
I know. The Transmeta CPUs.
Thank you. Right. Exactly. Yes.
Linus Torvalds used to work for a company called Transmeta. What was the company that the CPU chip? The Crusoe chips. Crusoe chips, the chips that were like, I think they were like RISC instruction set with like a built-in like an assembly language on the chip so that it could emulate an x86 instruction set or something like that. It was really cool.
Sounds super efficient, right?
Yeah, where is that today? So yes, Plasma Mobile, I would be super stoked. In fact, I would be mega stoked. And if you go back in time, I think I wrote articles about Plasma Mobile and how much I want it 3 or 4 years ago. So,
but you wanted it on your device you already owned, probably. Why would you want to go buy a new?
And here's the thing: is I'll buy a new device for it now, but there's still nothing. I mean, come up with a system that runs on a device or two, and I'm there. I'm absolutely there.
But I would go. I differ on this because I see this being the mistake. This golden cow in the sky of we're going to go after this new stuff. Stop with the new crap.
I agree.
Learn from the mistakes of others.
Take the software we have.
Yes, thank you.
Tweak it a little bit and build drivers for and installation processes for existing commodity hardware and ship.
Yep.
Ship one version, and then for 1.2 add one more model of hardware and then a couple new features. Like just keep iteratively going and adding more new features, and then you'll grow your user base. If you ship something right now for a Samsung Galaxy S3 for KDE Plasma, I don't have one, but I will hunt one down. I will hop on eBay.
Yeah, I got a Note 2. I'll do that. It's got the stylus. I mean, perfect. It's got the stylus already.
That's perfect.
Just saying.
That would be fantastic. RMH asks over on Twitter, how to stop distro hopping. I've tried so many times and am hoping at least 2 times a year, and I'm hopping at least 2 times a year still, mainly because of desktop environments. Welp. I think
that's a toughie.
I think he's So how did you? So I think someone replied to him, and I don't know what this person's name is because he used a bunch of funky characters to make him. I think it's Liv Stradamus. It's almost a disorder, but the way to quit hopping is to stop thinking and know the one you should be on is the one you've just installed. Yeah, it is a little bit of a disorder. I have the same thing. You know what got me to stop distro hopping? you get elected to the board of a distro, and then you,
right?
no,
Yeah, that'll do it.
so I ended up settling on OpenSUSE before I got elected to the board. Probably about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. And what did it for me is I realized, just like what we were talking about earlier, is I needed to sow my wild oats of distro installations. So I got myself a cheap machine to do all that on. But then I said, for my main machine, I'm just going to pick one that I really like. I know I already really like, and I'm going to go with it. And that's what I did. So then I made sure I just have 2 machines that I can do that with. That seems to be the easiest way, because then you can still distro hop, but you get the best benefit of both worlds.
I would say that's an option. If you don't have 2 computers, you can just either set up another partitioning scheme, or go full out and just get an extra hard drive and make that your burner,
your burner drive.
Yeah, and continue to distro hop. That's fine. But I think I would find, because I would guess, because a lot of people distro hop because they're not quite clicking with their expectations. Pick the one you hate the least, make that your default, and then distro hop on the other drive. That's what I do. Yeah,
that's a way to go. Or if you really want to force yourself to stop, you can use some sort of a negative reinforcement thing. Every time you distro hop, you have to force yourself to wipe your drive and install, let's say, Gentoo. You have to use Gentoo for 1 week.
If you want something that hurts less, you could just take jumper cables and attach them to your nipples in a car battery.
Oh, God,
and that might be a more pleasant experience for you.
So mean.
I'm just saying.
It's
Gentoo. It is Gentoo.
So mean.
I'm just saying. Gentoo is awesome if you have a lot of free time.
There's nothing but Gentoo hate in this episode.
No. Gentoo's cool, but
users,
you have a lot of free time. You have a lot. I mean, come on.
Gentoo has its good points.
It's fast as hell. I think it's great. I've run it. It's really good. But you gotta kind of be part of that battery cable.
You gotta be into battery cable torture. Peter S. Clayton asks, boring but still interesting. With the Ubuntu news, how do you see Linux in 10 years? Wait, so to be clear, 10 years would be 2027. Jeez.
I'm picturing like Buck Rogers and Twiggy and stuff.
Beady. 10 years from now. Well, let's see. Where were we 10 years ago? 10 years ago is 2007. So
we're past the Orinoco Prism chipset wireless days, right? So that was past that.
Yeah. So hardware was starting to work more often, but buying laptops was still hard. We were mostly using GNOME 2 and KDE 3.
Yeah, third-party tools to get things to work. Various Ubuntu add-ons for drivers and things like that. So a lot of third-party stuff was coming in.
A lot of that stuff. So that's where we were at back then. But it was we had an essentially functional and good quality desktop environment then, to be sure.
Yes.
I'm just assuming we're talking about Linux as a desktop at this point.
I would assume so. As a server, it either works.
It was great then. It's great now. It's going to be great in 10 years. Gosh, honestly, my guess is all the desktop environments we use now will be the ones that we talk about with rose-colored glasses as, remember when we had GNOME Shell? It was so fast
or remember when
and
we had a
lightweight.
choice? That's probably what happened.
Right? Honestly, my guess is if we have to look at history, most distros will be dead by then, because most distros don't tend to exist that long. So the ones that have existed since roughly the beginning will still have Slackware. The people will still have tutorials on Linux from scratching it. OpenSUSE will still be around. Red Hat will still be around. Debian will still be around. I don't think Ubuntu will still be around.
Ubuntu forums will be just as wrong as they are today about most of the tips and advice.
Just to be clear, I don't think Ubuntu will be around in its current incarnation. It'd probably be sold.
It'll be around. It's a successful distribution. It'll be around fine.
But it's one of those things. I mean, it's Ubuntu really didn't come into being until fairly late in Linux's history, and it was really just based on Debian. So my guess is, if history is any indicator, not quality, just history, Ubuntu probably won't be around that. It'll do what Mandrake did. Mandrake was very successful. 10 years ago, the idea that Mandrake would be gone would be preposterous.
Now, I would counter that and say I think the Ubuntu desktop will probably be an exclusive community project supported by. I don't think it will. I mean, I honestly think there's going to be a greater degree of
Maybe.
separation. Not dropped. It'll still be a thing, but
Just
I think that
a separate thing. Yeah.
we're going to be, the Internet of Things is basically we're going to have our microchips and USB ports in our brains and all
Right.
that. And, when we do a snap package, it's boom, and I've just installed Kden Live.
Is that how you do a snap package? You do the.
That's how you do it 10 years from now. Yes.
I Dream of Genie.
I Dream of Genie, man. You gotta hook up.
Now
with
we talking season 1, I Dream of Genie, or are we talking later seasons when?
Let's see. That's what's thinking. Darren.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think season 1.
Season 1. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll give you season 1. Anything after that's crap.
Simon Quigley asks, what are you looking forward to in the Ubuntu 17.04 release? Nothing.
That's a tough one.
And what do you hope / command happens for 17.10? Did you see did you watch last week's Linux Thursday at all?
Not yet.
All right. So basically I went over the history of how Ubuntu and Canonical always obeys my demands.
Yeah,
and it's
sure.
mostly as a joke, but looking over it historically, every time I've demanded something, they eventually have done it. So like I demanded that they change their color, they did. I demanded that they add Compiz desktop cube effects, and they did. I demanded that they drop mirror, and they did.
Right.
Like I kind of went through it step by step. So tongue in cheek, I was like, apparently I can command them to do whatever I want. So
last time I commanded them to do anything, I ended up in a monkey suit. So no.
We need to get the monkey suit back, by the way. I've gotten requests already. So is there anything we want to see specifically happen for 17.10?
Boy, goodness. That's not LTS. It'd be 17.0.
You know what? I honestly
1804 is an LTS, right?
Here's what I think they should do.
That's the only one I really care about.
Here's what I think they should do. It's not my world. I'm an OpenSUSE kind of guy, but if I were going for the ultimate success of Ubuntu as a distribution, since they are going to be moving over to GNOME as quickly as possible anyway, I would say 17.10 becomes a slightly different thing. 17.10 is a update that they do not push on their main page, but they make it available to the community as a release, as like a preliminary change version where they are not using Unity anymore. Drop Unity, make the change over to GNOME right away, make that change now, like literally like today. Now that 17.04 is out, change it over to GNOME now. There's going to be problems, there's going to be migration issues, but then you have all the time between now and 17.10 to work on those migrations, to add GNOME extensions to make the user interface experience more Unity-like for your users. And then whatever you fail to accomplish by 17.10, you've now got 6 months to get it right. And with 17.10, you've got all your hardcore developers using it every day and giving you constant feedback on it. That's what I would do. I would dive in and go for it balls out right now and do it that way, because when 1804 ships, it's going to be if it's the first one with shipping with GNOME Shell and it's a long-term support release, that is going to be a disaster. It is going to be extraordinarily bad. Ship with right now. 17.10, make the switch, boom, GNOME. Don't push it on people, because I'm sure it'll still be rough around the edges in terms of that transition between desktop environments, but make it available. Do it now. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think so, because what that does in video editing speak is if they wait till 1804 to do that, you have no transition period. You go from one clip to the next, and that other clip could just be, it's like, wait, what am I looking at now? Everything's different. But if you do a transition the way you're talking about, you have that nice fade.
Yeah,
it fades into the LTS.
You need a fade. You need that cool Star Wars swoop from left to right, the swoosh.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
you need that.
Yeah, it's, and some Star Destroyers and everything else. Definitely.
Actually, multiple people have pointed out that today was the 1704 release. Multiple people have dubbed it. Dennis MH says it is, and I quote, last stable new Ubuntu release with Unity Day. So that's a pretty big, exciting moment. Peter S. Clayton, innovation of new ideas in Linux versus consolidating and improving existing functionality. It's more of a statement, but it is kind of an interesting one.
Boy, so here's the thing. We can state our opinions all day long. The developer's going to do whatever the hell they want anyway, so it doesn't matter in that regard. But that being said, I think that the development community as a whole needs to have kind of the LTS mentality with certain things, to where they have a let's go crazy and try new things period, and then let's refine period. Because I see a lot of stuff, especially with like video editors and various software. Remember once Audacity went through an issue to where they tried something different and it broke a bunch of stuff.
Good times.
I wish we had that.
Yeah,
I really wish we had that. It was it's so I don't know. It was WX widget or whatever it was at the time, but the point is that yeah, it was a mess. But yeah, if we can make that happen, great. I just don't think that's going to happen. So ideally, that would be awesome to have a unified vision of everybody kind of does this on a schedule, but it's just not going to happen, and that's going to continue to be a problem potentially 10 years from now. Going back to the previous question. So.
And I think it is it's a conundrum, right? I mean, so what if you're running a distribution or just an individual software project within the Linux space? What do you focus on? New ideas and innovation, or improving and iteratively making things individually better? It's a really hard one. Usually you want just a little bit of both. It's
especially when the changes are just like. So like, you go to a new Ubuntu release and it's essentially visually it's the same, but we broke a bunch of crap. Okay. Or we go to another distribution, same thing. Really? It's like, it's avoidable. Come on.
Right. And it is kind of that way. I think we have over the last couple of years been in a innovation like land. What's the right word I'm looking for? Snowball. It's been snowballing in a lot of ways. Like over on the Ubuntu side, new desktop environments, new display servers, new package managers, basically literally everything, new init systems, new everything. And so I think to a certain point, you're noticing a lot of pulling back. So like Ubuntu and Canonical are chop, pulling it back down to one or two projects that they can focus on. And I think you're kind of seeing that all over a lot. When I was talking to the OpenShop video editor guy yesterday, he was talking about that a little bit, where a lot of what he is focused on has been not just the new functionality, but making things a little bit better, fixing the problems, consolidating, making better systems to allow him to be more forward-looking later. And you're seeing that with a lot of projects right now. So we're in kind of one of those phases where you see a lot of kind of consolidation. At least that's the way I see it, and I think that's a-okay. I mean,
I just like to see more unification. That's all. I mean, I don't know if it's money or ego stroking or what the hell's needed, but for Pete's sake, it's like
a good ego stroking.
Oh man, I'll tell you, it's one thing. If I had one wish for the Linux community, it's that we could all pull our heads out of our collective butts and find a way to be just a little, have a unified 3-month period.
No, it goes up the butt. It goes up the butt. That's where the head goes. That's where the head goes. That's why everything in the butt is so head shaped. Let me ask you this, Matt. Before we head off into the sunset on this delightful Linux Thursday, tomorrow morning, in fact, I believe it's at like 9 a.m. as I'm having this interview, I'll be talking with Richard Stallman.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What do I talk to Stallman about? I have a list of questions. I know what I want to ask him about, and I want to give him an opportunity to talk to me about whatever it is he's thinking about right now, or wants to talk about right now. But what are you interested in? What would you like to hear from Richard?
If I had one question for him, I think it's going to be less about idealism, but when you're dealing with the public at large and you're presenting your case and you've made a good case, and this is why free software is important, this is why freedom is important, and all that sort of thing, when you are met with a shrug or utter indifference, are people feeling this way in his mind? Are they feeling this way because they don't care, because they're lazy, or they've just accepted defeat? Which of the three items is it? Because I'd be really interested. I mean, I can look at myself and come up with a reason, but I'd be interested as to what he thinks the reasoning might be for other people.
That's interesting.
Because it's a problem.
It is.
It's a continuing problem. We could literally be living in cement houses with armed guards outside, and you would not see rioting, really. I mean, I think most people would just kind of come to grips with it if it happens slowly. As a society, we kind of tend to do that. So...
it's the frog in a kettle thing. Slow really changes. You just don't really
Yes. Yeah, it really is. And how do we overcome that? Is it because a lot of people shoot to the education side of it? Well, people don't understand. No, I'm pretty sure people understand because we've read about it post Snowden.
But I don't think they accept things the way they are. It's like those memes that are out there everywhere. I've seen a couple of memes now where it's like and a shot of the 1960s where someone's on the phone. They're like, Shh, we better be quiet. We don't want to get wiretapped. And then
I hear the clicking.
And then 2017 people are like, okay, wiretap. how do I make pancakes? And like talking to their little Google devices and phones everywhere. And we have come to a point where yeah, we have accepted a significant loss of both freedoms and privacy and lack of security, and we've welcomed it. We've paid for it. We've gone out and said we want this so bad, we're going to pay $299 and sign up for an account that stores all of our information in it because we want it so bad. And so that is what most people think. So I you know, that's a good point. That's a good question.
It's like to give them a single example of myself is Dropbox versus you know, an actual solution that is absolutely
like Nextcloud or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find myself choosing Dropbox because I'm cheap. Well, I'm also poor, but I'm cheap, and I know I can get a ridiculous amount of storage for peanuts.
Yeah, you really
can.
And
I find myself going that direction. Yeah. I know better. I understand the causality of what I'm doing, but yet I find myself doing that. Is it because I don't care, or is it because I literally have just accepted defeat? I would argue both of the latter.
Both.
That's just me.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Also, I do know better.
Also, significant laziness comes into it for me. A lot of it, like for me, I had Dropbox running, and I was like, I had a Nextcloud instance up and running, and I kept Dropbox for the longest time because I was like,
well, you'd have to migrate it all out.
I gotta clean up my files. I had like 800 gigawatts of files sitting over in Dropbox, and half of them are duplicates.
So do I.
And there's like
I got about 3/4 of a terabyte over there now. So.
It's ridiculous.
Now it's all crap. There's absolutely nothing financial or personal in there, but it's a lot of media stuff.
Matt, so. I have good news for you.
Oh, good.
We are over an hour.
Holy cow. Hey, we beat the hour thing. Woo!
We beat the hour thing, man. I was so happy with it. One of the episodes I did this last week, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. A couple of people commented and were like,
burp and you'd been on time.
They're like, you're just trolling us with the runtime on this one now.
That's funny.
Yes, I am. I actually watched because I've got a little timer right here on the bottom of my screen where I'm recording all of things get composite. I've got a little timer and I watch it like a hawk. I want to make sure I get it just right. Anyway, Matt, thank you for hanging out with me today.
Thank you.
Where can people read all of your delicious, sexy Linux articles?
Penguin.com, and also check out my Patreon. There are new videos coming. They're recorded to be released at Patreon/FreedomPenguin.
FreedomPenguin.com, Patreon/FreedomPenguin. Awesome. Matt, thank you. You gonna be here next week?
I will.
Awesome. Got you next week.
Yes.
And you know what? Next week, I bet you we will talk about less Ubuntu related stuff. That is my my prediction, because hopefully we will all be bored of saying the word Ubuntu by then. That would be delightful.
Yeah, but it ranks, so, you know.
Yeah, what are you going to do?